Welcome, everybody, to another edition of On-Prem Pros. Today, we are talking about PowerStore versus the ME arrays. I'm Ryan Brown, one of your hosts, and with me are some of my partners in crime. We have Tyler Young and Josh Moss, both solutions architects at xByte Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Of course. And today, PowerStore versus ME. We always get asked about this. I mean, a lot of people want to know, okay, storage arrays, are they all the same? Does it matter which one I get? And so, Tyler, we'll go ahead and kick it off with you. Can you go into some of the hardware requirements or the hardware differences between the two units?
Yeah, of course. So I guess we'll start off with the PowerVault ME5. Essentially, this is Dell's entry-level enterprise SAN, right? So this is going to be your storage array that's designed for shared storage, right? Sharing data between multiple hosts. And it's designed specifically for your block-based workloads. It doesn't do file data or doesn't support file data natively. But again, that's kind of what you expect of your block-based SANs. And it also supports SAS or nearline SAS drives, depending if you're talking about SAS SSDs, nearline SAS 7.2K spinners. But we'll get more into that here in a little bit. On the flip side, right, you have the PowerStore, which of course, as we know, is Dell's end-to-end, mid-range NVMe storage array, right? That's something where, again, right, if you're looking for your, to provide shared storage to multiple hosts, this can provide not only block storage, but also file-based storage as well, natively on the array. So that's a term that you guys probably heard, a unified, right, where it can support both block and file. And again, this is going to be completely NVMe. So the performance capabilities are definitely going to be at a much higher for those, more, performance intensive workloads that, we see customers often ask about.
Now, Tyler, does that do anything for capacity?
Yeah. So in terms of capacity, while the ME5 and also the PowerStore are both capable of supporting larger capacity disks, the ME5, if you want to exceed anything over 7.68 terabytes per disk, you're going to be looking at a 7.2K nearline SAS drives, which of course, come at a much slower performance versus with PowerStore. Again, it's all NVMe, and the largest drive size currently is going to be 30.72 terabytes. So again, for customers who need a lot more capacity, and without giving up the performance, essentially, PowerStore can definitely make that work, especially with some of the features that Josh is going to get into here in a little bit.
Okay, and on those drives, we were talking before the show about the PowerStores. They're dedicated to just the PowerStore, right? You can't use it just off the shelf, but the ME5 you can, or any of those ME series.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, one thing that Dell has always kind of remained true with, and a lot of hardware vendors do this, but essentially on the PowerVaults, that's something where the drives are, essentially a mix of just, your normal, PowerEdge drives, for the PowerEdge servers. Now you can't just do any drive in there, right? It's still going to be specific supported list, right, of drives that, have the supported drivers and firmware and whatnot. But essentially, that's something that we're able to inventory ourselves and provide to customers and still uplift into the Dell warranty versus PowerStore. Those drives, if you want to add any sort of drive to the PowerStore, officially, you can only get those directly from Dell. And that's not something that you essentially can just put in any NVMe drive. It's specific drive firmware that comes, again, directly from Dell. So that's something that, again, you're kind of more limited where, it's more important to make sure that when you are sizing out the PowerStore, you're essentially, accounting for that growth properly. Because, again, after, if you need drives later on, that's something that, again, we have to get directly from Dell. Yeah. So anyway, on the controllers, on the different arrays, a couple things I do want to kind of call out is while both of those do support, a lot of the same protocols and same speeds, there's some differences that are definitely worth mentioning. So I'll start with the PowerStore. So the PowerStore, offers, support for iSCSI or Fibre Channel controllers, right? As well as, NVMe over Fabric, NVMe over TCP, etc. But essentially, from a controller standpoint, you're looking at 10 or 25 gig optical. I'm looking at 10 gig base T or 32 gig Fibre Channel are going to be your options there. But what's really unique about the PowerStore and what is really cool is the PowerStore allows you to mix and match, meaning that if you have part of your environment that is 10 gig copper base to iSCSI, and then you have another part of your environment that's 25 gig iSCSI or even 32 gig fiber channel, you can essentially mix and match those the networking components through the different IO modules in the back of the PowerStore. You can essentially connect to multiple networks at once. So you can see there's a lot of room not only for expansion and to push a lot of data through simultaneously, but again, you have that flexibility where you're not limited to a single network protocol, network type. The PowerVault, on the other hand, essentially you have the flexibility to choose between your 10, 25 gig iSCSI, 32 gig fiber channel, or it also adds the option to connect via 12 gig SAS. But one thing I'll kind of you'll notice about the PowerVault ME5 is that you're locked into essentially a single protocol or single controller at a time, meaning that you can't connect the PowerVault ME5 to both a iSCSI and a fiber channel environment simultaneously. Whatever controller you go with essentially is the controller that you have both in slots A and slot B for the redundancy there. So again, a little bit more flexibility on the PowerStore when it comes to the networking side. One thing I do also want to kind of call out on as well is Dell on both the PowerStore and the PowerVault both have all-inclusive licensing, meaning that you're not being stonewalled for any sort of feature set that you're looking to get out of either of those arrays. Anything that you could want to do with either of those arrays, any feature sets that are available for it, you get access to all of that regardless. It's not locked behind any sort of a license like you see a lot nowadays.
Nice. Now, Josh, you've been kind of quiet here, so we'll let you take the center stage for a little bit now and talk about what's happening behind the hood. So Tyler gave us a little rundown on the hardware architecture side, but there's a lot more to it than just hardware that makes up the differences.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to software and features that are built into each of the appliances, the PowerVault and the PowerStore, one of the major differences between the PowerVault and PowerStore is that the PowerStore has the ability to do deduplication and compression. So the PowerVault, there is no dedupe, there is no compression. Depending on what RAID configuration you go with, your usable storage is your usable storage. When it comes to the PowerStore, however, there is a 5-to-1 data reduction ratio or DRR guarantee that Dell has that applies to your block data that is neither compressed or encrypted. So what that means is for block heavy workloads, especially VM environments, the PowerStore is going to be able to compress and also deduplicate a lot of the files underneath the hood that are present on the environment. And basically that's going to save you space on the back end and also save you money on the front end when sized properly. So another cool feature when it comes to differences is replication. So a lot of customers that have very stringent uptime or high availability requirements lean towards replication feature sets in their storage appliances. So when it comes to the PowerVault, you can do asynchronous replication, meaning you can schedule to run, say, every 30 minutes or so. The PowerStore, however, will not only do async, it can also do synchronous replication, meaning I/O is acknowledged on both arrays before that's sent back to the host side, meaning data is going to be in sync at all time. But you can also do what's called metro replication, and that kind of builds on to the synchronous replication feature and allows you to do active I/O on both sides. So say you've got a PowerStore in building A and a PowerStore in building B. You can do not only reads, but also writes on each end, and it's all going to be synced. So for customers that have, the optimal, most possible uptime when it comes to their storage array, metro replication, metro synchronous replication to be specific, is definitely a key feature.
Now, with that replication, is that between other storage arrays, or is that within the same storage array to other disks?
So for PowerVault, you can do ME5 to ME4 and vice versa replication. But when it comes to PowerStore, you can do PowerStore to PowerStore. So all that to say, it does have to stay within the same family. However, the multitude of options that we do have in the PowerStore family, we got the PowerStore 500T, 1200T, 3200T, and so on. You can do replication between the various different models.
Nice. All right, what else do we got? The dedupe compression. I mean, the 5-to-1. I mean, for anyone with a lot of data, that's a must-have. But
Yes, 100%.
Anything else behind the scenes?
Yeah, so when it comes to the operating system, the PowerStore's operating system is containerized. What that allows Dell to do is make rapid and reliable OS updates to the PowerStore. For example, whenever PowerStore OS 3 was released, it came with 4-to-1 dedupe compression. So through software development advancements and simple upgrades that are pushed to the customers, customers were able to take advantage of that 4-to-1 to 5-to-1 dedupe and compression jump. The OS on the PowerVault, all the same in reliability. It's just not as advanced as the PowerStore operating system is.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something. I'm going to add this to the stage for a second. Here's kind of a performance, gives a little detail. This is a common example that you guys have run through before with customers, comparing the ME5224 versus the PowerStore 500T. And so, Josh, can you give a run through right here and talk about the performance comparisons we have?
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is going to be in terms of drive quantity. It is kind of a 1-to-1 comparison. But as we go through here, you're going to see a lot of the differences arise. So just to recap what Tyler touched on, both units are 2U. You can run them from anywhere 120 to 200 volt AC, depending on what the environment is. You got your variety of connectivity options. And the PowerVault is block only, whereas the PowerStore family is unified block and file. So what we've got here is a 12 drive, 7.68 terabyte drive size, SAS for the PowerVault, NVMe for the PowerStore. Raw capacity, simple math is going to be the same. You've got a little over 92 terabytes raw. After the RAID configuration in the PowerVault using Adapt, you get 61.44 terabytes usable. With the PowerStore, you get 63.9 terabytes usable. Quick note on that.
For the audience here, you may be going to this in a second. We want to do a comparison using similar drive sizes, but as Tyler mentioned, with the PowerStore, because it's using the NVMe, you can get a lot, as far as higher performing drives, you can get a lot larger capacity ones when you're talking about the PowerStore using the NVMe because of the 30 terabytes versus the 768s. But in this comparison, we are I don't want to say dumbing down the PowerStore, but we are limiting it to 7.68 so we can get a fair comparison as far as effective capacity as well as the IOPS that you'll get into.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of looking for an apples comparison. One slight difference you will notice here is both the PowerVault and the PowerStore's RAID configuration under the hood is using a double drive fault tolerance, so it is synonymous with a RAID 6. Although it's not actually called the RAID 6 in either regard, but you can see a slight efficiency boost with the PowerStore because, again, we got the same raw storage, but you get a little over, a terabyte and a half more compared. But where we see the real differentiation here is the effective capacity row. As we mentioned, the PowerVault does not do any sort of data reduction, whether through the use of compression or deduplication. With the PowerStore's 5-to-1 guarantee for that block data, you would get 319 terabytes effective. What that means is while you've only got a physical 63.9 terabytes usable after RAID overhead, you would actually get 5 times that in terms of effective capacity when PowerStore does its inline and dedupe and compression on the back end. So
and that's guaranteed, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it could even be higher. We've seen customers get significantly higher than that. It's just Dell saying that, hey, if your workload is not seeing a 5-to-1, right, we're going to, essentially make up for that and give you the drives to get there, as long as your workload meets the requirements and all. But still, that's huge, right? A lot of these hardware vendors, especially nowadays, will make these claims like, oh, this can do XYZ performance or XYZ dedupe compression, but they don't stand behind it. It's just like, oh, yeah, it could, right? But there's, they're not really putting their money where their mouth is, where Dell is like, hey, if we don't meet what we're saying it's going to do, we're going to make up for that and get you there. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yep, absolutely.
And the IOPS and the throughput, you can see the difference with the NVMe. That makes a big difference here when you're looking at the performance. So you get better capacity and and better performance. I mean, that's why we're seeing a lot of them go toward these power stores when they need that. So,
Yeah.
Josh, we'll go ahead and tie off with you. You kind of summarize for everybody. When someone's looking at these two, what are the workloads versus who are the target audiences for each of the different devices?
Yeah, so for the PowerVault, as Dell markets it as the entry level, block storage device, it's going to be for, I'll say, small, medium business customers that are looking for general purpose, storage, whether that's, backup targets for Veeam or what have you, virtual machine hosting, just kind of general across the board. When it comes to PowerStore, for customers that require, the utmost performance, and especially workloads that can take advantage of the data reduction ratios that PowerStore will offer. So especially, say, VDI environments that are heavily dedupable. But really, not all workloads are the same. So whenever Tyler and I are talking to a customer, we're really going to look at the workloads, utilize live optics to figure out, what exactly your workloads are doing in terms of throughput, IOPS, and tailor the storage solution to the need. There may be some overlap when it comes to PowerStore versus PowerVault, and where both of them are absolutely, viable options. But at the end of the day, tailoring it to the customer's requirements and their budget is really what drives us to one versus the other.
That makes sense. So if you are interested in either of the models, the PowerVault or the PowerStore, please contact xByte Technologies, and we'll be very interested in helping you out and helping you decide which one is the best option. And if you need it, we can even do proof of concepts. So we've done that for customers as well, where if you're not familiar with the PowerStore, we can kind of spin one up for you so you can get your hands dirty and get in there and see that it's as easy as everyone says it is. So everyone, thank you guys. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Josh. From everyone at xByte Technologies, thank you for watching, and hopefully you give us a call and we can help you out with your selections.